In Lesson 1, Part 2, Visual Control System, it is to know what is happening, what to do next, how to do the work, and how well work was done. Here are some of visual control we often encounter in our workplace. Andon, Kanban, shadow boards, control boards, and mistake proofing. Let's first discover what is Andon. Andon in manufacturing refers to a status display station. The origin of the term Andon is from a Japanese word for a traditional paper lantern. It is one of the most common forms of visual management that is in use in Lean. It is a highly effective tool as it enables the operation to run smoothly without any bottleneck. Andons are the lighted signal like the traffic lights with three colors on top of each level of production assembly line. The commonly used colors are the one we use in traffic lights, wherein green means the production is normal or smooth, therefore proceed to the next level of process. The next is yellow, which means a problem appeared and operator should take help of concerned authority to fix the problem. And lastly, red, which means production stopped and needs for further investigation to address the issue. This happens when problem is not identified. There are commonly types of andon. First is the manual. Manual andons activate manually by the operator or employee in the assembly line by either pressing the static button or pulling a cord. The second one is the automatic. Automatic andons activates automatically on the conveyor when criteria fixed in the assembly line are not met or lacked. Andons were light signals in the manufacturing process to enable operator to signal the status based on the color. Today, visual displays are more sophisticated. However, their purpose remains the same, communicating efficiency and real-time status of the plant floor. Here are some of the benefits using Andon in our workplace. It can improve transparency, as it encourages immediate reaction to quality, downtime, and safety problems. It can increase productivity as it brings immediate attention to problems as they occur in the manufacturing process. It can strengthen flexibility as it improves accountability of operators by increasing their responsibility for good production and empowering them to take action when problems occur. It can reduce downtime as it improves the ability to supervisors or operators to quickly identify and resolve manufacturing issues. And lastly, it can save cost and time as it provides simple and consistent mechanism for communicating information on the plant floor. Here is an example of using Andon in our workplace. The diagram shows a production line that is using a light signals. In here, the diagram shows how it works. First, an abnormality appears. Then the indicator is activated. Once indicated, appropriate action is performed. For example, in this, the problem is big, so the red light is activated. This will stop the line. Second step, the Andon board now shows red. A siren also sounds, as Andon can also be added with sounds. Third step, an appropriate action is performed wherein manager and engineers come in the line to help. The next visual control is Kanban. In our daily life, we once encounter or experience what is Kanban. We can sell Kanban inside our vehicle, in a sink, in a box of tissue, even in our favorite restaurant. So what is Kanban? It comes from the Japanese word meaning sign or billboard that indicates available capacity to work. It is one of the fundamental tools used in lean manufacturing. Kanban allows efficient flow of materials by managing its demand automatically. It is essentially a form of trigger for flow of materials in much the same way traffic light controls cars on the road. Kanban could be applied to an internal or external process. There are commonly types of Kanban. First is the internal Kanbans. Internal Kanbans are used to manage the flow of materials internally within the plant or the production Kanban. Second is the external Kanban. It is used to trigger the replenishment of materials from the outside vendors or the withdrawal Kanban. There are different Kanbans exist such as Bean Kanban or Kanbin, a fax Kanban or Faxban, an email Kanban or Eban, a card Kanban or Kanban cards. The thing is, it does not matter what the flagging system uses to trigger the material flow. They all work on the same principle of replenishing on demand. So what is it to mean now? When and how effective are Kanban? It is useful for simplifying planning and to fine-tune production to meet changing customer demand up to positive to negative 10%. It's good for planned monthly and weekly production schedules. When the system can be tightened by removing cards or by reducing the number of parts on a pallet, the effect will be to speed the flow through the process and hence reduce lead times. When vulnerable to breakdowns and other causes of dislocation. Here is an example of a Kanban applied in a workplace. A supplier implication. We provide a purchase order that covers a certain overall quantity and pool as required. In this tool crate Kanban, a supplier receives one and must fill in all the components for a kit prior to return. An additional example, in this the diagram shows a withdrawal Kanban using a Kanban card and a visual instruction on how the process will work. Here's another example of using a Kanban card to trigger the replenishment of material. The next visual control is shadow boards. Shadow boards, it creates a visual place for tools and supplies to put away, eliminating any question and assisting in organization and cleanliness. It's a way of organizing your tools so they are always at hand and visible. It must be designed by the operators that use the tools and should never have drawers or leaves that close. In other words, these help the user to easily spot the tools or equipment need to use in a glance. Color coding and numbering is also a must in shadow boarding. It determines and assigns colors and numbers for each area in your facility. Assign colors and numbers to shadow boards and tools as well as the cleaning stations. Colors help determine in what areas the tools belong. When two of the same shadow boards are in the same area, a numbering system helps you determine what goes where. Labeling and signage also help to identify know how to do work. Shelves and storage bins should be clearly labeled. Sub-assemblies should be labeled. Storage areas should be labeled and outlined. All labels should clearly identify what the item is and how many should be stored in that area. Line painting, this will act as guide on which and where a tool or equipment is designated and placed. Also, it leaves a clear direction. For example, a paint off walking areas in the plant, a paint off around hazardous areas as a warning, around working equipment, a paint lines for storage areas, and even for in-process inventory. To improve layout of workspace, have items used frequently kept at hand, for example, using a shadow boards. While items less frequently used should be kept just out of reach, items seldom used should be stored away from the work area, and a basic ergonomics should be applied when designing your workstations. The next visual control is control boards. Control boards. It is used to monitor the progress or output of a process against plan. Thus display daily or hourly production targets and achievements, as well as the targets taken for customer schedules. For example, this shows hourly activities, as well as its target quantity and its actual quantity in that period of time. And a feedback that gives the receiver understand the situation in the line why the target was not able to reach. And lastly, mistake proofing. Errors. Can we do something about this? There are two ways of dealing with errors. First, errors are unavoidable. Second, errors can be eliminated. Is errors really unavoidable? Bad news, errors are inevitable. As people always make mistakes, while we tend to accept the mistake as natural, we blame the people who make them. With this kind of attitude, we are likely to overlook defects as they occur in production. They may be detected only in final inspection, or worse yet, by the customer. But the good news, errors can be eliminated. Any kind of mistake people can make can be reduced or even eliminated. People make fewer mistakes if they are supported by proper training and by a production system based on the principle that errors can always be prevented. We need to keep in mind that even though we cannot avoid it, we can still eliminate it. Here are some sources of defects: unomitted processing, a processing errors, missing parts, errors in setting up work pieces, wrong parts, tools and jigs improperly prepared, equipment not set up properly, an adjustment error, a misoperation, even processing in wrong workplace. Aside from sources of defects, there are also different kinds of errors such as forgetfulness, misunderstanding, misidentification, inexperience, willful, inadvertent, judgment, no standards, an unexpected situation, or even intentional. The common way of dealing with error is inspection. There are two ways of inspection. The sampling inspection, wherein it is practical but good only for the manufacturing but not from the customer view. And the 100% inspection, which is time-consuming but can be done efficiently if production is organized properly, good from the view of the customer. So what is mistake proofing? It comes from the word pokayoke, meaning error proofing. It is something in a product, process, or procedure that physically or procedurally prevents a person from doing something incorrect. Basic function of pokayoke. When an error about to occur in a shutdown condition, meaning normal function stop, in a control condition, meaning intentional errors are impossible, and warning, meaning it will signal abnormality about to occur. While when an error has occurred, its shutdown condition normal function stop, control condition, meaning a defective items cannot pass to the next process, and warning will signal that defect has occurred. Here is a characteristic of a good pokayoke. It is simple and cheap, meaning if they are too complicated or expensive, their use will not be cost effective. Also, if it is part of the process, implementing what Shingo calls 100% inspection, and if it is placed close to where the mistakes occur, providing quick feedback to the worker so that mistakes can be corrected. Here are some of hints in Pukayoke. First, identifies items by characteristic. As shown in the figure, it can be by weight, size, or shape. Also, detect deviation from procedures or omitted processes. Can be in a process sequence method, or in a process-to-process sequence method. In addition to Pokayoke hints, it can detect deviation from fixed values such as using a counter, through an add part out method, or even in a critical condition detection. Here is 5 best Pokayoke. First is use guide pins. Second, use error detection alarms. Third, use limit switches. Fourth, use counters. And lastly, use checklists. With these guidelines, mentioned sources of defects and kind of errors can be eliminated. For example, the diagram shows a quick connect couplers and a color-coded hoses. This will reduce setup time and reduce the possibility for operator error during setup. Here are some principles of basic improvement for Pokayoke and zero defects. First, build quality into the process. Also, all inadvertent errors and defects can be eliminated. Stop doing it wrong and start doing it right now. Don't think of the excuses, think about how to do it right. And a 60% chance of success is good enough. Implement it now. Here is an additional example of using Pokayoke. This adapter is an example of a good Pokayoke which will disable the user to insert it wrong as it displays the same shape. This drive to as it gives proper direction to the customer. This tray in the trash, as it obviously shows that the tray is not feed to the trash, which triggers that it is not on its proper area. To recall the key message of this lesson is number 1, visual control system can help improve transparency as it allows identification of problems much more quickly. Key idea number 2, visual control helps facilitate simplifying work to improve workflow. And key idea number 3, good visual management needs no interpretation and provokes the correct reaction. Thank you for listening.